You're supposed to remind me. And then we will open it up to questions. And this crowd is a little larger, so let's be respectful of each other and give everyone the opportunity to ask a question if they have one and participate in this process. So first, from your left to right is John Stevens, Jim Albers, Ron Mitchell, Bob Rivers, and Rick Osterloff is standing in for Dan Gershowitz, who is on a trip and could not be here, but he wanted you to know that he's concerned with what you might have to say. Rick will actually field the questions and take them back to Dan, or you can email Dan directly, and Rick has all that information. They drew numbers at the very beginning. We'll follow that same process this afternoon. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. John Stevens to open it up. I'm sorry, Jim Albers.
I was a loser. I'm number one. Okay. My name is Jim Albers. I was elected to the advisory committee beginning in July of 2016, and then the developer appointed me to the board in April of 2017. I'd like everybody to know that this is a tough, demanding, and sometimes thankless job. It doesn't pay very well. It's, you don't get much for it. However, some people I've noticed in my time on the board and advisory committee that they complain no matter what side of the issue you take. They'll go ahead and complain, and they don't show up to a lot of meetings. But I do believe that the vast majority of you people out there do support the board, and I appreciate it. I would like to give you some ideas of what the board has accomplished. I am proud of what the board has done since I've been on it. The board directed me early on when I was on the advisory committee to facilitate the tree replacement project. And that project was quite extensive. I hired an arborist to determine what trees were to be replaced. And the reasons for that were to prevent future damage to our property and infrastructure, and to prevent future HOA costs. In this project, we replaced approximately 190 trees in phase 1 and phase 2. It was very successful. I was also directed to facilitate the rules and regulations. The board appointed a committee to handle the rules and regulations to eliminate all conflicts and duplications within it, and to make it extremely user-friendly. Which I think we succeeded at, and hopefully it's going to be out this week. We interviewed several people in the community, and we got expert people to work on this project, people that were expert at Microsoft Word, completing forms, making linkages, and that type of thing. And the new rules and regulations that's going to come out has an extreme search mechanism, so you can type in a word like golf cart, and it will take you everywhere in the document that talks about golf carts. So, and it has links to all the governing documents as well. So you don't have to go out of a document to get to another document. It will link you to that thing. So I think that was a very successful project. I am also a member of the Community Association Institute, CAI, and they're committed to the education and furtherance of board management and its members supporting HOAs. They put forth the best practices in support of HOAs. And as a member, I completed several training courses in furtherance of my fiduciary duties and all legal matters. The board has been working diligently with the developer and the HOA attorney to finalize transition issues. And part of this is working with the developer and the HOA attorney to forgive the $2.6 million advance/note, as some people call it. We are currently working on this agreement, and we're hoping to get it done by the end of the year. It's a conditional agreement, conditions placed on both the board and on the developer. And the good thing about this agreement that we're creating, the board has to approve that these conditions were met, not the developer. So we're working on that, and hopefully we'll have an answer on that by the annual meeting. We also, the charter restricts parking entirely in this community. We changed the charter effective January to allow street parking with reasonable safety restrictions. We also completed and awarded a 2019 contract for landscaping and maintenance. We also received HOA-funded engineering study that we got, and it concluded there were no infrastructure problems in the community, which is very good in our negotiations with the developer. We substantially reduced our insurance costs by about $30,000 per year. And by reducing it, we also added workers' comp for volunteers, and we increased our liability coverage substantially. We have a space problem, so we approved the refurbishing of the basement, which allows multi-use functionality and efficient space utilization. We also have problems with our current website. We found a new vendor, and we approved a new website contract which eliminates all storage and bandwidth problems at a significant savings. It also allows for the electronic submission of e-forms and work orders. We facilitated the landscape options based on individual resident needs. That's that red, green, yellow thing you've seen out there. We approved the resurfacing of the indoor pool deck area. We expanded our cleaning service by adding a 30-hour work week. We resurfaced the tennis and pickleball courts. We also reduced our future HOA liabilities for irrigation and landscaping effective 1/1/19. We cleaned up the Montgomery property, which is designated green space, and added a trail. We have also succeeded in keeping our dues to a minimum, our dues increases. The reason that I'm running is I believe I want to be a responsible neighbor. I want to protect and ensure the quality of life of this community, the property values, and the needs of the communities. Additionally, I believe I have excellent communication, motivational, interpersonal, and presentation skills. I developed these skills as a federal criminal investigator and special agent in charge in 31 years as a law enforcement professional. In conclusion, if elected, I will continue to serve the community in a fiduciary way and diligently and professionally work with the developer, board, and Crestwood residents. I will continue to vote for what is best for the community, not for personal reasons and not for special interest groups. I want to ensure our community continues to be great and maintain our property values, and I promise you I will not vote for major financial undertakings without seeking the input of the community and letting them know the pros and cons as to why or why not we need these additional amenities or whatever. And I thank you for your consideration and your support.
Mr. Stevens? Oh, I'm sorry, Rick.
Thank you. I said Dan's not here. He regrets that he couldn't be with us today. But he asked me if I would read his introductory statement to the residents of the community. Good day, fellow Crestwood residents. My name is Dan Dershowitz, and I am running for one of the current HOA board vacancies. First, I want to apologize for not being with you today. However, my wife Harriet and I had planned a vacation for this week and could not reschedule it. I want to thank Rick for presenting my narrative to you today. Since I cannot reply to any questions you may have for me in real time, I'm happy to answer any of your questions if you email me or text me, and Rick can provide that information. I would also be happy to meet with you next week when I return. Second, my message today is quite simple. I want to continue my involvement and service to our Crestwood community by becoming a member of our HOA board. I believe that my resolve and dedication, coupled with my vision and leadership experience, can help inspire you and other Crestwood residents to find and enact solutions to continue to build our healthy and vibrant community. My wife and I have always been involved in civic and nonprofit organizations, including prior homeowners associations, wherever we live, and our move to Crestwood 4.5 years ago has not been different. Since moving to Crestwood, we have been involved with Crestwood clubs and committees, as well as local volunteer groups. We have experienced firsthand the vibrant, active community which has brought us all together. Whether you live in Crestwood for the amenities and lifestyle, proximity to your family or Lake Lanier, we continue to grow as a community and an extended family. We enjoy an amazing lifestyle, exciting amenities and activities, and we are truly a value-added community. We now face the next and most critical phase for our community, our self-governance. We will own 100% of our destiny and decisions and require a leadership team that is able to address new challenges and opportunities and be steady financial stewards with a cohesive vision and strategy reflecting the values of our community. My involvement within the Crestwood community has encompassed being current chair of our Architectural Review Committee, the leader of our engineering work group, and a member of our Marina Committee. I have previously been a member of our Budget and Finance, Safety and Security, and Transition Committees. I have a keen awareness of the issues we need to address together and will assist in developing creative solutions. Many of the issues we found are posted on the engineering reports located on our Crestwood LL website. Some of those issues will require addressing in the short term, while others will require a longer term attention. In any case, we will need to address them in a collaborative and proactive manner. We're also blessed with many wonderful, talented people with different life experiences and community service, many of whom lead our committees and clubs. We need to encourage those residents to remain active while engaging others who have skills and talents to consider becoming active in determining our future. If elected, I will bring to bear all my prior work experience, leadership experience, and transparency in both the nonprofit and public sectors to advance the policies and goals of our Crestwood community. With your help and participation, Crestwood will continue to be a value-added community with the association board that is responsible for community needs and continues to service all of our residents in the years to come. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Stevens?
Let me start by apologizing because for two reasons I want to read my prepared statement. The first reason is I want to be sure to say the same thing to every crowd that we see today. We're getting to talk to 4 different audiences. And the second reason is I want to be sure I get a chance to say what it is I want to say in the time that we're allotted to speak. So hopefully this will not come across as a bedtime story. So many of you may know me from my 3 years as vice chair of the Architectural Review Committee. A fair number of you may know me from when I chaired the Amenities Work Group, which was part of my role when I was on the Transition Committee. Some of you may know me from my 3 years as president of the Kayak Club, or as a member and board advisor to the Crestwood Community Fund. Still others of you may know me through my participation in the Crestwood Chorus, the Scotch Club, the Billiards Club, or playing basketball and softball together. But probably most of you know me as Arlene's husband. And truth be told, I'm very, very glad about that. Arlene and I moved to Crestline 3.5 years ago after living 30 years outside of Boston, where we raised our 2 daughters. Professionally speaking, I'm a psychologist with a doctoral degree from Rutgers, and I want to tell you that the Rutgers University football program makes me want to be a Georgia Bulldog fan. So, as a psychologist, I'm licensed for professional practice, professional and private practice, and I've worked in psychiatric acute care inpatient facilities, outpatient clinics, and private practice. However, while I was training at Rutgers for clinical psychology, I also studied management psychology, which is essentially a deep dive into the psychology of organization leadership and the use and abuse of power to achieve things with and through people. That turned out to be the field where I spent the last 30 years of my work life. As a management psychologist, I got to assess and evaluate senior management people for the jobs that they were going to assume. Essentially, offering a professional opinion about their readiness, psychological readiness, for the role and positional power that came with that role. I also got to evaluate their fit with the circumstances within which they were expected to perform and succeed. However, most of my workday back then was spent in private one-on-one conversation, coaching conversation with senior managers to help them leverage themselves and manage themselves as good bosses, whose job it was to lead people so that the right business agenda got achieved. This included helping them shape the company culture so that those people willingly wanted to do the right things in the right way. For me, it was very meaningful, very satisfying work, because it got to express my fundamental character as a helper and a healer by directly enabling me to enable other people's success. And that's why I'm running for the seat on the board. I want to help the right things to happen in the right time frames so that we can become a vibrant and healthy resident-centered and resident-led community. Crestline at Lake Lanier is indeed a nice place to live. I think we can, and I think we should, thank Coulter and Bob Rademacher for what they have started. But they're slowly relinquishing ownership and management of Crestline, but it will be a while yet before we're totally managing our own affairs. The turnover process, however, has been started, and we will eventually be leading and managing ourselves. And obviously, there are many things to sort out and contend with during this transition. The current board, indeed, has its hands full, and I believe has been making a good faith effort under some very trying circumstances. I think that my professional background and perspective might be very helpful to them, and likewise helpful to you, the residents of Crestline. Among the things I would try to do if elected are these 3 things. I would want to elevate and strengthen the communication exchange between board and residents, hopefully allowing for more input from residents and more clarity from board about the issues they are grappling with. Number 2, I would want to involve the community in defining a strategic vision and direction, as in, what kind of community do we want to become? And how do we set ourselves apart from other over 55 active adult communities? This obviously has, the answer to that one obviously has implications for our ability to preserve and perhaps even elevate the resale value of our homes. The third thing is I want to engender and support a community culture wherein organized clubs and groups intentionally reach out to one another and support one another in ways that heighten the enjoyment and the goodwill that residents experience by participating in the events and activities here at Crestline. So in addition to offering my professional background and experience, I would also bring some personal beliefs which govern how I conduct myself. Here are 3 of them. 1, how you treat people says a lot about you. It says something about your character, it says something about your substance, it says something about how you view yourself relative to others. Number 2, I don't know everything. And I don't need to know everything. That's why God created a lot of other smart people. People who actually enjoy being content experts in their field, whether it be finance, engineering, law, and even psychology. I believe that my value add is in knowing how to leverage that and integrate that so that we find the best right answer. Number 3, I am nowhere near being perfect. I make mistakes, usually because I have misunderstood something. Hence, I put a lot of extra effort into listening and learning, to include trying to see things from someone else's perspective. Hopefully, the people who know me from any of the forums and activities that I mentioned earlier would attest to the fact that that's how I conduct myself. And I will continue to conduct myself in that manner, whether I am on the board or not. Thank you.
Mr. Rivers?
Hi, I'm Bob Rivers. My wife Major and I moved to Crestwind in early 2012, so we've been here for quite a while. We've enjoyed living here, and we are have become a part of the community. You may have seen me in chorus, or I helped establish the Crestwind Community LL Fund. I have served the community in the position of advisory, a position on the advisory committee, and also chair for 2 years of that advisory committee. I've also served as a board member briefly before being put on the chair as of the transition committee. The transition committee was a very complex organization made up of a variety of work groups in each of the areas that were going to be an issue for transition. And I might say that those folks did a really outstanding job on each work group. We had work groups in finance, we had work groups in amenities, we had work groups in a variety of areas, engineering, rules and regulations, and so forth. Very, very pleased with the work of those groups, and our job was to provide those recommendations to the board for action. So we were really an advisory group designed to get down into the weeds and work through the issues and problems associated with approaching transition. The focus of that group was to prepare us in very specific ways for dealing with the issues that come up irrevocably in meeting with the developer and negotiating that process. In Crestwind, I have served as a member and chair of the I wish to serve on the board to continue my work to transition our community from a developer-centered to a resident-centered one. The goals I have for serving on the board are to assist in the transition from a developer-centered community to a resident-centered community. This is a very important aspect of how we view ourselves and how we want to be viewed by the developer as we go forward. It's a very careful negotiation process. So I would like to contribute that with the background I've had in the transition committee. My second goal is to work collaboratively together with residents, property management staff, clubs, and committees to develop a community vision and promote values that are the core of our mission, supporting the intellectual and physical needs of our residents, along with engaging social, educational, and recreational opportunities. I think it's important for us to do that kind of work because the decisions, both policy and financial decisions that we make, need to be driven by that mission and values. We will have limited resources, so it's important that we put those resources behind things that we all value. My third goal is to help make policy, financial, and other decisions in the best interest of the community as a whole. That is the role of the board, to really do the work that's necessary in order to make a good, solid policy decision that reflects the values and input from the community. They also, the board supervises a property management organization and works with the committees to accept recommendations and implement those recommendations as they desire to do so. My fourth goal is to foster input from the community on specific policy issues that affect a large number of residents. I know you can't really go to the community for every decision you make, but on decisions that affect a lot of residents and reflect a major policy shift, it's important that you get input from a variety of mechanisms from the community. My fifth goal is to keep the community informed of board decisions and the basis for those decisions. Not only is it important for the community to see and understand what those decisions are, but they also need to understand the rationale and the background needed to understand those decisions. Finally, to promote the use of common areas in such a way as to reflect the shared vision and values. There are all kinds of things that you can do with these facilities. The things that we want to do are things that reflect what we consider to be important and key in the development of our community. So I want to be a part of that process in sifting through and understanding what the community values. Obviously, you can't get a unanimity on much of any topic, but you can get a sense of the community in terms of how they feel about those things. I spent a lot of time as a university administrator. I was a professor of science teacher preparation at Purdue University for a number of years, and 12 of those years I was a university administrator serving as the dean of education. There were lots of constituencies. There were students and faculty, administrators, and even occasionally parents. And that was a very difficult thing to sort through all those constituencies. And the most difficult thing was that many of those constituencies did not agree at times. So you had to work through that to try to get a consensus. That is the background and the experience that I bring to this job, along with the work on the advisory committee and transition committees. I have a heart for this community. I really want to see it grow and flourish and develop along the lines that we jointly are willing to work towards. So I appreciate the vote, appreciate the opportunity to come to you now. Thank you.
Ron?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending today. My name is Ron Mitchell. I'm currently the president of the Association Board of Directors, better known as Rosemary's husband. In the way of background, I was born and raised in a small steel mill town in western Pennsylvania, north of Pittsburgh, and it's where I grew up. I started my banking career actually a couple years before being drafted, back when there was a draft. And after being drafted, I applied for a position to a school at the Army Artillery Officer Candidate School in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, from which I graduated in August of 1966. I spent 12 years in the military, with most of my assignments being overseas. I had tours of duty in Korea, in Vietnam, and 2 tours in Germany. After my military service, I went back into banking where I had a career spanning over 30 years. Positions from various operations manager jobs, mostly in the branch and regional manager positions. During that time, I was employed primarily by the Bank of America under contract with the Department of Defense for providing retail banking services overseas to active duty military personnel. My wife and I retired in 2012, and Rosemary and I moved to Crestwind in June of 2013. Shortly thereafter, it was in November, was my first volunteer assignment, and I was given the opportunity to update the rules and regulations manual, which is a delight to work on. After completing that task after a few months, I was selected to be on the advisory committee. That was in 2014, and I've served continuously either on the advisory committee, which later was elevated to board of director status since that time. So since 2014, it's been 4 years on the advisory committee and the board of directors. And I was on the AC, of course, when it was changed to board of director status in the spring of 2017. Being on the board, I'm involved, along with my fellow board members, with virtually everything that has to do with the community. Rules and regs, problems, inspections, anything at all that involves the management of the community the board has its hand in. And I've been involved in that over those 4 years. Some of the more significant actions and things that I think are important to highlight from an accomplishment standpoint, Jim Albers notwithstanding, since he's on the board and shares in some of these accomplishments. But initially, I thought that the introduction of the open board meetings was a very significant step forward, where we used to sit back in a room and just go over things and have an occasional visitor from the community. It got to where we were inviting, of course, the entire community and getting a decent response. So we'd have well over 100 people on some occasions would attend the open board meetings, and that was a significant achievement, I think. I was involved in the initial process in developing the negotiating points which will lead to a full transition from developer to association. This was done with input from a variety of groups. It was already mentioned there were various committees set up by the board to offer recommendations and advice, and there were a number of work groups. And from all of that information, we extracted the priority issues and the negotiating points with which to bargain with the developer. One of the key things throughout these several years